And we are not live. We are actually recording this one today, Scotty.
Well, it is a very special episode of Set to Stun. It's a Burnettwork exclusive. Welcome aboard. My name is Scotty R37, and Steve is in engineering with the news.
With the red shirt and the news.
True story.
First up on the docket today, actually, what we're going to do in these little exclusives for the Burnettwork is we're going to do one story, one news item, and then we're going to run down a list of our favorites from Star Trek, whether that be captains like we'll do today, or spaceships, starships, whatever we decide for that episode. So just to kind of give everybody a little insight on how the structure of the show is going to go.
Well, but it wouldn't be a Burnettwork exclusive if it weren't about Star Trek.
That's right. So here we go. First up, this just dropped today in the news. NASA helped celebrate Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry's centennial.
The program includes a panel discussion moderated by Rod Roddenberry, son of Gene Roddenberry, with Star Trek actor George Takei participating. NASA is helping the legacy of inspiration, hope, and diversity fostered by the creator of Star Trek to live long and prosper. The agency will observe the late Gene Roddenberry's 100th birthday with a special program called Celebrating Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek's Bridge and NASA, a panel discussion on NASA television, the agency's website, the NASA app, and NASA social media at 2 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, August 19th. The program includes, pardon me, an introductory remark by NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, followed by a panel discussion moderated by Rod Roddenberry, the aforementioned son of Gene Roddenberry. Special guest George Takei, Star Trek actor and activist, will participate in the question and answer session. The panelists include Tracy Drain, Europa Clipper Flight Systems Engineer, Hortense Diggs, Director of the Office of Communications and Public Engagement at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, Swati Mohan, Leader of Mars 2020 Guidance, Navigation and Controls Operations at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, and Johnny Kim, NASA astronaut. Coinciding with the program, NASA will broadcast into space a 1976 recording of Gene Roddenberry's remarks on diversity and inclusion through the agency's deep space network of radio antennas. NASA also is inviting people on social media to join celebrating Roddenberry's 100th birthday on Thursday by posting a Vulcan salute selfie with the hashtag Roddenberry100. More information about Roddenberry Centennial is available at roddenberryfoundation.org/centennial.
Yeah, so Hortense Diggs sounds exactly like a character on Star Trek to me.
It's true.
So this is cool. This sounds like a cool little event that everybody can check out tomorrow.
Yeah. It sounds really, really interesting, and I would love, I celebrate Gene Roddenberry and all of his hope and optimism and his debauchery as well. The man was a hound.
He was a hound. Yeah, so the panelists seem cool. It's cool that George Takei is going to do the question and answer period of the session, so that should be cool. The broadcast into space is a nice little nod, but, whatever. I mean, that's kind of neither here nor there for me, but this sounds pretty interesting. Do you actually watch the NASA channel at all?
I do not. The most of my science-based YouTubing goes to Dr. Becky. She is and she talks about space phenomenon and black holes and Uranus. She's a big fan of Uranus.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, I do. I check out the NASA channel every once in a while. Just on the TV, the NASA TV channel. Every once in a while, I'll check it out. this should be good. But you can get it not only on the television, but the website and the app as well. So
Cool.
it should be all over the place. So with that out of the way, Scotty, let's get into our list for the show.
Absolutely. We've got a list of captains, and I'd like to rank them. Now, these are just captains from the shows proper. We're not going to go with Captain Paul Rice from the first season episode of Next Generation, although I do like Captain Rice. Right. He was confused by the Starship Lollipop. It's a good ship.
And I didn't go into like Captain Riker for the Titan. I didn't go into. I kept it really to the 90s, the original Star Trek series and the 90s series. I didn't go into any of the new Trek captains. Okay. But you want to go one for one, starting at the bottom?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
I think you should go first. I'll go first.
So this will probably shock and surprise a bunch of people. If you know me, it probably won't surprise you at all. But my number 5 is Captain Kirk.
Really?
It really is.
Okay. Well, why so low on the list there, Steve?
Probably because I am not a huge fan of the original series. I grew up watching it, but it didn't land for me the way it landed. It seemed to land for everybody else. Everybody else was so into it, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool, but I wasn't. It wasn't a fandom thing for me.
Okay.
At least then. So what really got me into Star Trek was Next Generation.
Okay.
I liked and the only reason I watched it, I think, is because I remembered liking the original series. But the original series, although it was on reruns a bunch when I was a kid, it's not something that I watched over and over and over and studied every episode and did long think pieces in my head about every episode. And I actually remember watching the cartoon as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the animated. So I think that informs me a bit on my choice. I do put them higher than any of the new Trek captains.
Yeah.
And some of the ones from the limited amount of books that I have read.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have one right here, Federation, which is really good. So yeah, I think it's that. Plus, it's not that I don't love Shatner, because I do. I think he played the role great, and I think he's done amazing work since.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know. It's something about that Captain Kirk. I don't know, man. It's funny because when we get to our, we're going to do a show where we list the movies, and Captain Kirk movies are some of my favorites. So they're on the list more than anybody else. So, but it's just in this particular ranking. Now, I reserve the right to change this ranking at any time in the future, because it does change, kind of like my, what's your top 5 favorite movies of all time, or 10 movies of all time? It changes. It changes with, as I grow older and think back on things, and then sometimes even with my mood in certain instances, it's just, it changes. So for now, number 5 is Captain Kirk. What about you, Scotty?
Well, I accept your apology.
Of course you did.
My number 5 is Captain Catherine Janeway.
Okay.
Now, it's not that I don't like Captain Janeway. I just found Janeway to be a little bit more fast and loose with the Prime Directive. I still haven't gotten over the Tuvix debacle. The willy-nilly exchanging of technologies when it suited her, and her steadfast resolution to not share technologies with the Kazons. I know that was something that happened very early on in Voyager's run.
Oh, I hate
and
the Kazon.
She sort of relaxed on that. It's not that I found her to be a poor captain. I found her to be a great captain in extraordinary circumstances. But I used to have a childish ranking of my captains based on how long their ships lasted. And seeing Janeway's ship was lost in the first episode, I was like, well, clearly,
Right.
That is a failure of command. But
But it wasn't a failure of command.
it was the premise of the
Maybe it
entire
was.
show. I understand
Yeah.
that. But it just there was it. It's not that I dislike Janeway. I've found I've rediscovered Voyager in a positive light, but Janeway has always been out of my list. Just the one that I have the least affinity towards.
She is actually on my list, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes.
So who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Captain Archer from Enterprise.
Hey, ditto.
So Captain Archer really reminds me a lot of Captain Kirk. I think they share a lot of the same kind of qualities. And talk about somebody, I mean, there was no prime directive, right? So Archer just kind of was just flailing on his own out there, just, kind of laying waste to any prime directive or anything like that. But
oh yeah.
But I do like him as a captain. But sometimes in the series, at least, he got super intense, especially with the Zindi thing, and he started going over the line. And but those kind of things, this is what I love about Star Trek. It makes you think about things, on a deeper kind of levels. Like, okay, yeah, he's going to an extreme here, but he's trying to save the entire world from destruction, right? So it starts bringing up these moral quandaries, like, how far is too far? I mean, is waterboarding too far? Because we have those kind of questions in real life, right? Is that too far? And is it, what's too far? Is torture too far? Does torture even work? And it's things like this, and it starts bringing up, real life IRL type of moral questions, and that's what I think Star Trek does at its core the best, especially the way they use, allegory and metaphor to tell these deeper stories. But yeah, that's what I kind of liked. I like Archer. I thought he was, if you're gonna do a prequel like Enterprise, he was the perfect kind of captain, I think, for that inaugural. Let's go into deep space and see what the hell is out there.
Well, and no small amount of praise when it comes to Archer. You can't ignore Scott Bakula. I've been a Bakula fan since Quantum Leap.
Me too.
But it's interesting in terms of you saying that he reminds you of Kirk, and I found that he reminds me of Kirk as well, except not to the point of being as measured. Like I find the show Enterprise to be humanity stumbling into the final frontier and making it up as they go, as opposed to having those rules. Yeah. So I did really appreciate it when they brought up things like establishing some sort of directive, and it would kind of be a fan service drop, but it would also be laying the groundwork. And that's why I was sort of hesitant towards that show and Archer as a captain when I first saw it. But now that I have the context of not only the new Star Trek shows, but also putting it in with the classic era Star Trek shows, I have a newfound respect for Captain Archer.
Yeah, it's Chandra, who hosts our live show, the Set to Stun live show every Tuesday with you. She said the same kind of thing, that and I encourage a rewatch of Enterprise, and we'll talk more about that on another episode. But it's I think it suffered from a lot of people didn't really care for a prequel thing, and then obviously it had some issues with an abrupt ending, so that it didn't end the way it should have. I wish they had gotten a couple more seasons to really discover and explore the foundations of Starfleet and what that really was going to be, the United Federation of Planets, what that was going to become. I thought they were starting to hit a stride there, and then got the carpet yanked out from under them. But so that's for another time, Scotty. My number 4 is Archer. What's yours?
Yes. As
you
mine.
Said yours. Yeah. Okay.
It is.
For much of the same reasons?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we'll be able to get into that a little bit more when we talk about our favorite series, or rank our favorite series. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure. Okay. So that brings us to number 3.
Yes, sir.
My number 3 is Captain Sisko from Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
One of my favorite captains, obviously top 3.
Mhm.
And I think what touches me most about the Sisko character is obviously the poise and the gravitas that Benjamin Sisko just brings when he walks into a room,
Mhm.
but also the tenderness he shows not only with his son, but in his relationships with other people, on the with the other characters on the show. Uh, he's a he's kind of a I mean, obviously he's a badass.
Yes.
Cisco's a badass, right? I like that they explored that side of him as well. It's a very full character. So yeah, I really love now Deep Space Nine is one that I took my own advice and started doing rewatches of, because I think I watched that once when it aired, and didn't rewatch it until just recently, like in the
Mhm.
last like 4 or 5 years. And then I just recently watched every one of them uh, during the pandemic. I watched all TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise again, just to just because it was fun to do, and I loved. This one thing about Star Trek for me, at least, if I'm ever sick, hungover, don't feel good, just have a case of the Mondays. My immediate go to is Star Trek,
Mhm.
and
Oh.
usually it's TNG, or it's Voyager or Enterprise. But now lately, since this last rewatch, it's starting to more be DS9 episodes. So yeah, Captain Sisko, amazing captain. I liked the emissary kind of role that he played. I know that wasn't for everybody, but I dug it. I thought I kind of tied a bow on, especially at the end. Kind of got a little wonky with the Goldacott
The
turning into
paw
a
wraiths.
Bajoran paw
Yeah.
wraith kind of deal. But whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Mm.
Cisco is a great captain. I put him at number 3 on my list. Who's your number 3?
Well, I'm going to disappoint a whole bunch of people. I've disappointed them before, so let's do it again. My number 3 is Captain Jean-Luc Picard. And I think that I I really admired Jean-Luc Picard during the 7-season run of The Next Generation. I don't know what character it was in the movies, and I certainly didn't want to see a frail old Captain Picard in Star Trek Picard. I still greatly admire. It's just when he turned into John McClane in the films, and again, spoilers for Star Trek Picard, but seeing him sort of wither and die and be turned into an android golem was not my cup of tea, just because Star Trek Picard season 2 isn't going to have Picard in it. So
Is that right?
well, it's going to have Picard, but it's not the Picard we know. It's a
Right.
downloaded construct into an
Right.
android body, in which case it might as well be Dr. Ira Graves in Data.
Right.
So it's sort of the dilution of the resolute diplomat, the passionate resolute diplomat that Picard was in the television show. The change of character in the films, I wouldn't say soured me, but certainly turned down the volume of my love for Jean-Luc, or
Mm.
JL if you want. Jean-Luc Picard does not let people call him JL.
John Luck Pickard.
Yep, that's the one. That is my number 3.
All right. So we're on number 2 now. My
Numero
number
dos.
2 is Catherine Janeway.
Okay.
I
What?
I really love her as a captain. I and I know that not Voyager isn't everybody's favorite, and it's not it's not my favorite show either. But I grew to love not only the show, but I loved her as a captain. It, like everything that the others aren't, she was, right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did like the fact that she could be vulnerable, but never a damsel in distress, never punching above her weight class. She was always pretty much the pinnacle of what you would consider uh, you know top 1%. I would assume, of Starfleet Academy. So I loved her interaction with Chakotay. I thought that was awesome. Um, that enemies now frenemies now
Mhm.
deep seated respect and trust that happened there. I really liked the way that she conducted mainly herself and the crew through what was a perilous, crazy, you know, we're in another in galaxy or part of the
Fun.
galaxy,
Yeah.
and we have to, and it's going to take forever to get home, and we have to figure it all out. Um, I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that that was the premise of the show, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was a great way to expand the universe of Star Trek, and she, her taking the helm was a good way to not only have a woman captain, but we've seen women captain before
Mhm.
in TNG and stuff. But to actually explore what that meant in the show. So my number two is Catherine Janeway.
Okay.
Hmm?
It's interesting though, because I'm sort of thinking about Kate, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
well, she even manipulated herself through temporal shenanigans, and so it's one of those. I don't know. I do appreciate her tenacity in ensuring the return of her crew, but it almost went sort of.
So
They have
here's where
those
you and
rogue
yeah
Bond
here
movies. This is a rogue Starfleet captain, but not really. I don't know.
right. I don't know, but so the temporal stuff that obviously you don't like, as some of the stuff I like the most. Like
Mhm.
I love when when her and 7 of 9 gets recruited uh by the temporal agents, and they're and she's got to jump back in time and try to so those are that kind of stuff is what I like. In fact, I would love a series called Star Trek Temporal Wars, and just talk and just show the temporal wars. But I know
Mhm.
that's not everybody's cup of tea either. But so that's probably stuff that turns you off about Janeway. I think is what just kind of turns me on about it, and that she doesn't the temporal prime directive can kind of go to hell with her. She's like, hey, who cares?
Well, and out of all the starship captains, she was the scientist of the
She
group.
what? Right, right.
So I can admire that. Now my number two
Mhm.
is the ship designing Benjamin Lafayette Sisko,
Yeah,
the pimp hand of the Alpha
right.
Quadrant.
And
Uh,
Clockmaker,
and Clock, well, it depends on whether or not he's under the influence of anyone. But
right?
yes, absolutely. Baseball fan, good father, willing to end a war, but not necessarily feeling comfortable with what he would have to do. The moral quandaries and compromises that he had to make. Those, and I know that's sort of juxtaposed with my opinion of Janeway being a
Mm,
rogue and off the books. There was still a flag firmly planted in the ideals of the Federation and humanity, and even the internal conflict of what it's like to live on Earth amongst in paradise, and how you deal with those Federation ideals when you are on the edge of the final frontier, as the tagline for DS9 went. But I thought
right.
he was fantastic, and just the most emotional of the captains, because it was again in my childish rankings. I had Cisco lower on the list because it was earlier in the show, but to have him so gutted and devastated by the death of his wife Jennifer,
Yeah.
I found that to be a raw emotional. I was like, oh no, Kirk or Picard, they wouldn't cry, and as we would see, like Kirk did cry. Kirk
Did
cried
you
when his
did
son
you
died,
like
and
did you like the Cassidy Yates character, and did you think that that was appropriate for Cisco at the time?
yes, I thought
Yeah.
that was an excellent growth of his character to be able to finally let go of Jennifer and embrace Cassidy Yates, and then also incorporating his new romantic relationship with his relationship with his son, and
Right.
having that be a plot point. But uh, everything from his dedication to Starfleet and willing to modify his ideals, even in chasing Eddington to the ends of the earth and destroying the
Right.
biosphere of a planet. It's like, okay, this guy does mean business, and he's one of the few people, one of the two people who can go toe to toe with Worf, and so. It
Yeah.
was he is my number two for everything that he survived and how much fun he had, but also when he got down to business, get out of his way.
Cisco, especially with the dog with the bone that you were talking about, that tenacity
Mm-hmm.
reminded me a bit of Picard in a way, with the Ahab reference for Alfred Woodward in the
Mm-hmm.
movie, which segues nicely into my number one. My favorite captain is Jean-Luc Picard, and
Understandable.
it probably has everything to do with the fact that TNG brought me in, really brought me into the fandom more so than anything else. Also, he was just after what we got with Kirk, he was completely different, right? It was a more mature, measured, uh, very logical approach to the captain's chair, other than the kind of cowboy diplomacy that we got with Kirk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that really, especially at that time, I was a junior and senior in high school, um, just trying to still figure things out and really getting into philosophy and studying religions and trying to really wrap my head around these kind of complex moral ideas and philosophies and they tackle a lot of that in TNG and I really liked that logical, almost Vulcan like approach that Picard had. So that makes so I, unlike you, I put the Kelvin timeline stuff, which I consider everything 2009 up to present day. I didn't consider that in my rankings. So so for you, the new incarnation of Picard sounds like it diminished Picard on your list a little bit. Whereas to me, I'm only judging by that. I'm not. I just kind of, and maybe that's wasn't fair of me. Maybe I should have taken that into consideration. But I like my Picard in the series, and I enjoy him in the movie. I do notice and accept uh, that the character did change in the movies a bit,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it wasn't drastic enough for me to say whoa. It was just like, okay, all right, I get that. I get why you have to do that in a condensed 2 hour form.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that card is my number one, and I think we can all guess who your number one is, Scotty.
James Tiberius Kirk.
Yes.
Yes. Outer space superhero. Not well, maybe not superhero. I grew up with Captain Kirk. I've made the joke before. My parents plopped me down in front of a television on a Saturday afternoon when there were reruns of Star Trek on the CBC. And 12 years later, they showed up and they said, "Are you doing okay?" And I'm like, "And you are?" Um, I met my parents after they abandoned me to Star Trek, and he was an adventurer, serious, duty bound, loyal, funny.
Space cowboy on a steel horse. He rides.
Oh, it was the action adventure hero with discipline that I admired, and the friendships that he had, and the concern that he showed for Spock, McCoy, Uhura, check like the entire bridge
Yeah.
crews, even Scotty when Scotty is falsely accused of murder, and just so much about him in the adventure and hiding his uncertainty to move forward and boldly go where no man has gone before. When I hear that phrase, even when Picard says it, where no one has gone before, we're boldly going where no man has gone before, I think of James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
And there was even a time when Shatner sort of dropped into self-parody and then had a resurgence later in his career. But Captain Kirk was when I learned to separate the artist from the art. And people would say, "Oh, Shatner, he's a joke, he's a punchline," and I was like, "Yeah, he may be, but Captain Kirk is a different dude." And I think that speaks to Shatner's acting. But in terms of childhood heroes of who I wanted to be when I grew up, it was definitely Captain Kirk.
Awesome. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are good lists. I mean, I figured they'd be pretty similar, and they were.
They crossed.
They're pretty similar. I mean, the order's out of whack a little bit, but that's what makes these things fun, right?
Oh, and I could be completely wrong. I don't know.
So, since this is for the Burnettwork and the PGS, get down in the comment section and let us know what your favorite captains are. Rank them. They could be top 3, top 5, whatever you want to do. If you want to add some of the newer captains or other captains from other parts of the fandom, absolutely do that.
Captain Thadian O'Connor.
We'd love to see what you guys come up with.
Absolutely. And don't forget, if this is the first time seeing Set to Stun, check out the live shows on Monday nights, 6:30 Pacific and 9:30 Eastern. We do that with Chandra and Steve, and it is more in depth, and we have a good time just sort of talking about Star Trek. And if you are a fan of that, as we are, you should join us.
Awesome. So I think that'll do it for us today, Scotty. So for Scotty R37, I am Steve Foley. Have a great day, everybody.